If you want to know when a country's finances are truly screwed, listen carefully to what its leaders accidentally admit. And last week, China's finance minister practically went on national TV and screamed, "We're broke." I'm not exaggerating. At a September press conference, he casually admitted that every penny we spent is borrowed. That is not fiscal discipline. That is maxing out a credit card while applying for a payday loan. When the guy in charge of Chinese government's finance publicly says that, the fiscal house is already on fire. And let me break this down. By the end of 2024, China's official government debt hit 92.6 trillion yuan. Sounds abstract, right? And here's the translation. China's GDP that year was about 126 trillion yuan. That means that equals 73% of GDP. And I did the math. If you buy into China's inflated population figure of 1.4 billion, then every single Chinese citizen now carries an average debt of 66,000 yuan. So a newborn baby in Shanghai starts life already deep in debt before taking their first breath. And that's just the official story. You and I both know Beijing's official numbers are about as reliable as a used car salesperson swearing that, the engine is brand new. And China also has a dirty little secret called hidden debt. These are off the balance sheet loans taken by local governments through shady financing vehicles. My estimate is that it is at least another 60 trillion yuan, meaning real debt likely exceeds 150 trillion. And here's the part most people miss. Even the GDP number they use in calculating that ratio is fake. In my earlier video, I showed how China has already been shrinking for years with negative GDP growth. No matter how rosy the propaganda looks. And so that means the true debt to GDP ratio isn't 73%. It is far, far worse. A skyscraper built entirely on IOUs and a foundation of lies. China's finance minister admitted that by August this year, local governments had issued another 4 trillion yuan of special financing bonds, basically paying old debt with new debt. Sound familiar? It's the Ponzi scheme playbook. Even Fitch, the international ratings agency, has been sounding the alarm. Interest costs on these bonds have exploded from 2.9% in 2019 to 7.6% in 2023 and projected to hit 10% this year. Meaning for every 10 yuan borrowed, 1 yuan is just to cover the interest. That's like refinancing your mortgage every single month while wondering why you're still broke. And here's the kicker. This bill isn't paid by corrupt officials. It is paid by ordinary Chinese people through higher taxes, shrinking social services, and salaries that never arrive. So China is essentially living on a national credit card. China's 2024 total fiscal revenue was 23.4 trillion yuan. Sounds like a fortune, right? Until you see where it goes. Central government revenue 10.1 trillion. Local governments 13.3 trillion. Central government transfers to local governments 10.2 trillion. You see the problem? Beijing collects money and gives almost all of it away to the local governments and then has nothing left for itself. So how does the central government fund, the military, the diplomacy, the Belt and Road, boondoggle, and even daily operations? Simple. They just borrow all of it. Every parade, every banquet, every win-win cooperation summit you see on Chinese TV, it's all on credit. So China has become a family whose entire paycheck goes to rent and utilities, but they still insist on leasing a luxury car and flying first class to Bali. And we all know how that ends. Bankruptcy. Now, some people will definitely say, Ken, but the US has huge debt too. It's true. But the US has the global reserve currency. When Washington prints dollars, the whole world absorbs it. Yes, the exorbitant privilege that a country like China will never have, because the yuan has zero international trust. Printing Chinese yuan just triggers hyperinflation in China. That's not bailout, it's just pain. And pain is already here. In the first half of this year, civil servants in Liaoning and Heilongjiang didn't get their salaries on time. These are supposed to be iron rice bowl jobs, right? 铁饭碗, safe for life. If even these jobs, these people are not getting paid on time, the system is cracking. And many retirees didn't receive their pensions. Imagine working in a factory for 40 years, finally retiring, only to be told, sorry, Grandpa, your money is gone, wasted, and maybe ask your kids for help. It's not a future nightmare, it's happening now. And last year, they just raised the retirement age for the first time in decades because their national pension is going bust and they cannot cover it up anymore. And now the dominoes are falling. The core of this collapse, China's economy has no blood flow left. Real estate sales plunged 8.5% last year, the lowest in history. More than 70 industries are tied to real estate. Steel, cement, furniture, you name it, all collapsing. Land sales, which once funded local governments, have plummeted. Beijing now hoped new industries like EVs and solar panels, would replace real estate. And instead, the West slapped tariffs on these, Chinese dumping. And now the warehouses are overflowing with unsold EVs and solar panels. No new growth, no revenue, just that. So what does Beijing do? Borrow more. A vicious cycle. Economic slowdown leads to lower revenue and more borrowing, which leads to higher interest cost and even lower credit. And that's the exact spiral that takes down bankrupt families and banana republics. Now, the coming collapse of Yuan. At this point, there are only three ways out, and every one of them is a disaster for ordinary people. First and foremost, currency crash. The yuan's purchasing power evaporates. Your life savings gone overnight. Poof, like magic. But without applause. And second, tax hikes. Beijing hunts down every yuan through taxes, fees, or donations. From big corporations to the guy selling noodles on the street. Nobody escapes. And third, spending cuts. Hospitals underfunded, schools falling apart, ordinary families crushed. And this isn't speculation. We are already seeing teachers paid at a discount and many hospitals running out of medicine in poor places like Guizhou and Yunnan. Now, out of the three paths, which path do you think the Chinese Communist Party will most likely pursue? Simple. Option number one, currency crash. Here's why. Raising taxes too aggressively risks immediate unrest. People can see a tax hike the moment it hits their already thin wallet. And angry crowds on the street threaten CCP's grip on power. What about cutting social services? That's even more dangerous. Imagine tens of millions of retirees suddenly unable to collect pensions. That's how revolutions start. But inflation? It's just a sneaky tax. Most people don't understand it until it's too late. Prices creep up, wages lag behind, and the middle class quietly bleeds out, while the party can blame the Fed or foreign sabotage. For Beijing, inflating the yuan is politically convenient. It erases debt in real terms, making today's IOU easier to repay. And it pushes the pain onto the Chinese savers and the poor without sparking immediate riots. And it keeps the party's power intact, at least for a while. But make no mistake, this solution will devastate ordinary Chinese families. And when the crash comes, the yuan you have been saving for years won't even buy you a bag of rice. Beijing is not solving the problem. They're just choosing the easiest way to steal from their own people. And the worst is yet to come. Even the IMF warned that if the Chinese debt keeps expanding, the GDP growth in China could fall below 2%, which I think is too optimistic. It's already negative. And that is Japan's lost decades on steroids. And the history is cruelly clear. When regimes go financially bankrupt, political collapse follows fast. So next time you see Xi Jinping waving on TV, remember, behind that confident smile is a country drowning in debt, running on a national credit card that's already maxed out. The Chinese yuan's days are numbered. And the only question left is how fast the crash will come and how loud it will be when it finally hits.